Hello.
Hi.
So here is some stuff that you may have seen on the preview, and that's some work by Canadian artist Galila, and he is at least in some of his creations, he carves out large sections of books or even book sets. As far as I understand, he carves out some of the volume he carves out with sand blower, and I guess the fine details are done by hand after that. And these are beautiful objects, and I'm sure you've seen at least some of them before, and there are some thoughts about erosion and civilization, and I guess entropy in this art. But anyway, he uses real books for these art projects, and that's I've seen some people reacting not so nicely to some of these works, and here's the object that was on the thumbnail of our live stream, and I can probably understand some of the sentiments, but still, for quite a long time, my understanding or my attitude toward this topic was that if a person doesn't use a book that is absolutely unique or has some historical value, I guess, even not, even not emotional, probably, but historical or art value in the first place, then go forward with it. And if you can create something even more beautiful with these books, well, that's perfect. That's what art is for, and it raises some questions and starts a discussion. And that's, by the way, the exact reason I posted the photos I'll show you in a bit, and that's launched this discussion on Facebook. And it was a bit heated, a bit too heated in my opinion. But yeah, sculptures with books were created for quite a long time. And what do you think, Pavel? For how long they've been made?
Well, I know only of post-war examples, but probably it started before that. There are some examples of carved book edges from the 19th century. Again, repurposed because so many collectors kept their books not vertically but stacked and never read them, basically. There were masters who could carve your edges to give them the shape related to what's inside the book. And often they cut through the text. And there were quite a lot of comments, even back then, of how you shouldn't do that. But then the sentiment itself, I think, comes back to how you should treat your books. Remember when you were a kid, you were almost yelled at when you spilled anything, or God forbid, dog-eared pages.
We need to make an episode, a live stream with some samples of early Soviet posters about technology of reading books and using books.
I recently looked through an archive of Newton's own books. And how he used them is very characteristic. He dog-eared them all the time. You can recognize his books by the amount of dog ears. And the archivist who was showing this was very apologetic about, you should understand it wasn't us who did it, it was Newton, so it has a documentary value. It tells us about how the books were used. And my first reaction, my gut reaction, is always, oh no, how could he have done that? But then when you think about it, this is how you use books. If they don't just lie around, they get damaged. And if this damage adds something to its information value, why not? And as for the book sculptures, in this sense, when sculptures made of books I personally never had any problems with it because I don't know of a single example when a valuable book was used in that way.
Well, this sort of reminds me of I think it was IWW's installations with vases, with antique Chinese
he used ancient Chinese vases and covered them with modern slogans. The most famous one is Coca-Cola, written over a 4,000-year-old pot.
Yeah, and also broke
also
some
breaking
of them.
too. Yeah. So now that is a bit much.
It's a step a bit too far away. Yeah. But so that's with the books, and more often as when I see some discussions of these book objects, more often than not, book binders and book artists say that, well, it's okay, and people who have this holy attitude towards books, they are the ones who complain the most about the books being mutilated. And then comes the next thing, and the topic of our today's discussion. And
we should probably also remind our viewers about Mike Cockram's work.
Yeah, that was next. I wanted to. I think we will just play a couple of minutes of his introduction to his varied books, but I wanted to show some photos first, so to just get the context how it all started. And,
whoa! What is that?
Here are some of the objects that I saw on a flea market in Paris. I visited a flea market this weekend, one of the flea markets, and there are these cubes, I guess paper holders or something. There are these larger plaques.
And what kind of size are we talking?
So this one is 30 by 30. The one I have here is 15 by 15 centimeters.
And are they purely decorative or are they book weights?
Well, the cubic, I guess, they can be used like paperweights or something like that, and I think they are designated as paperweights on the website of the creator. And the flat ones, I guess, they are purely decorative, and you can put them on a wall or something. And there are even larger panels. So and then they are all made with wooden type and metal cliches that are used for printing. And some of these items are pretty worn out, but some of them are not. And that was the main reason for the for all the hate that I got, or this creator got.
And what is the creator's name?
So it's Bernard Lemoine, and the project is called Vulkain. He creates lots of things like that, and I can see why some people may consider it problematic, because wooden type is something much more unique than mass printed books. I can share some of the comments that I got when I posted these things on Facebook. And so that's the post, and I covered all the names beside this one, because there is some beautiful fabric that this person made, and I wanted to share it as well. So there are some positive, amazing work in the US. Stuff like that is very, very expensive, and the 30 by 30 centimeter plug is 220 euros. So I cannot say it's cheap in France as well. And then there is Satan's work, ignorancia, so ignorance, and disgraziati is disgrace. Amazed to find only 2 or 3 descending voices here. Why publish this on Lovers of Letterpress? I've seen this for sale in France. It's sacrilege, and then I agree. So, firstly, I talked to some of my friends who are printers, and I agree with their comments, especially as they are people who are working with the type. But firstly, I think, isn't it a bit overboard? Sacrilege, Satan's work, all that. Doesn't it diminish the Satan's work in some way or something? Doesn't it diminish what can and cannot be sacrilege or sacrilegious? I think it's a bit of an overreaction. I personally wouldn't use wooden type in this sort of art. But then I continue. I reserve the rights for an artist to create art in a way that they see fit or okay doing, until it doesn't limits other people's freedoms and doesn't create a problem for their livelihood.
There is another aspect of this. There are so many partial or incomplete font sets available on this sort of markets, or even individual letters. I see them all the time used as decorative items in cafes, at in people's homes, because what on earth could you possibly do with a letter A if it's the only letter from a font?
Yeah, and that's one of the arguments that were made by the people who try to defend this sort of art, and sort of me posting these photos. But and the other people answered like, beautiful, amazing. I have a similar object at my workshop studio. It serves as a memory of our, I don't know, grandfather who started our business or something like that. And so there were some really nice comments, and I'm quite happy to see that even in the letterpress community on Facebook, something like 2/3 of the reactions were positive, and only 1/3 of the reactions was negative or even angry. And I wanted to read another comment that sounds really quite reasonable. So here it is. And you can find them on Facebook, even while I covered the names on this image, because I don't know if the people want to be associated with all that stuff and get even more hate from any side of the argument. So while I do not endorse this as a product for wood type, I also appreciate some craft work and repurposing beloved material. Here in the States, much of this equipment was literally thrown out when digital means replaced them in newspapers, giving us a heightened sense of scarcity. In Europe, they had doubled the centuries to make, toss, and replace this equipment, roughly from 1500s to 2000s. Against from 1750 in the US. All of this leads me to believe that this type was very likely unused for the majority of living memory. There also aren't many job shops in Europe to make good use of the tools, and they probably couldn't sell locally, regionally to suit their original purpose, not to mention being of a different type height than in the US, and else are making it difficult to sell internationally. And I also mentioned that there were some quite different standards for the types in the different countries of Europe, and it's all the same, or I think it's all the same standard in the US. But anyway, many more standards in Europe, so it's not that interchangeable. Many more languages in Europe, so it's not like you can easily take type from one country and move it to another and use it right away. And there are Cyrillic letters used in some countries of Europe, which is even more fun to the mix.
Well, and even Latin-based languages have all sorts of ligatures and special symbols, and even letters that we all have in common, like A. are written in many different ways, even for the same font families. So,
and then I'm not a person who is in charge of saying anything in favor of Bernard Lemoine, the artist behind this project, but he had posted some photos on his Instagram, and you can see that the type he buys, even if it seems that there are lots of letters still intact there, there are many of them that are missing. So that's not full type cases that he uses for his project, at least as it seems from the photos that he posted. So I'm glad that this discussion happened. I am a bit upset by all the negativity and the severeness of the negative reactions, and yeah, I can probably read another set of comments that there was something interesting there. Fabulous, fantastic work. It's a bookbinding community, so I always start with fabulous, fantastic work. Then no,
it is a sign of time we are passing by,
and that is one of my favorite ones. So yeah, it's the last days. The last days are coming. People started to create art with wooden type, and once again, it's sort of devaluates the drama and the severeness of the problem, I guess, if there is a problem. I hope the discussion will continue and wouldn't stop here. And if there are any comments from our viewers, we'd be glad to hear them. And then if you can share your opinion. And by the way, what I forgot to add, that this object, even with all the controversy and all the stuff, it's done very well. So it's a nicely done object, and I've seen many of similar items on sale in thrift shops, on flea markets, and by artists themselves in different locations and different countries, in Europe, in the States, anywhere. And more often than not, they are made quite sloppily and without, I wouldn't say taste, because who am I to judge any other person's taste, but well, just sloppily. This is done very well, and that's the reason I decided to buy it. I decided to tell about this artist on our Instagram and to share information even further. So I appreciate this form of art, or I don't know, decorative art or whatever, even if it's a bit controversial.
Kalin is writing, I believe there are more examples of badly made book sculptures than better ones. I'd be curious if somebody made the books from scratch and then proceeded to destroy them, make a sculpture. So funny you should say that.
Funny you should say. Yeah, I just want to return to these comments once again, just for a moment, because I love this one as well. It's going to be hard to print with that type. So yeah, but Kalin, funny that you should say that, and we have something prepared.
Yeah, so in one of our previous interviews with Mark Cockram, of which there are quite a few, we discussed his project of burying actual books. And waiting for a few months.
I think I can run the video, and if people want to watch it with Mark's commentary, they can go to our YouTube channel and watch it.
So he buries his sculptures, his future sculptures. He buries the books. He waits for a few months. Sometimes he buries them not as flat books, but fixes them in some sort of shape, like a cylinder or even something more dramatic. Waits for the rigor mortis to kick in, so for the shape to get fixed, and for all the texture of decay and time and fermentation to come, and he uses them as parts of his sculptures or even as individual sculptures. So one example, when he placed a book made into a sort of spiral under a glass dome, and it's quite a thing. So the thing, here it is. Yeah, here it is. So the thing is, Mark's personal preference is to never bury books made by other people. So he first makes them and then he buries them, which is unusual, I have to say.
But quite reasonable.
Yes, I think it's
a very reasonable approach.
Yeah, so it's his
thoughtful,
sculpture. It should be his book. I don't recall if I asked him how good those books were as books, or did he just select the ones he didn't really like, or were they purpose made? I forget those details now, but the project itself is very interesting. I would very much love to own that particular example.
Yeah. We'll also ask Mark if if anybody wanted to join him and ask Mark bury their books, their bindings, and he told us that not yet, at least, but it was a year ago or something. Maybe something changed then. And we definitely know that Mark buried even more books since that recording. So maybe later this year we'll ask him about his latest experiments in this form of book sculpture. So yeah, here's another approach, and you can definitely, well, this is one of the options. You can definitely make your own books and turn them into book sculptures in any way. And if anybody tells you anything about that, then they can show their own opinion somewhere where the sun doesn't shine. Yeah, and this reminds me of something we discussed with Daniel Kelm as well, as he faced some angry comments concerning his book sculptures as well, and even while he was the person who made them, and he didn't even bury the books, but then not always people are not always happy. It's like there is something wrong going on the internet, but even before the era of internet, people were getting angry for all the random reasons. There is also another topic I wanted to share within this main theme, but yeah, sure.
Sorry, Mark is showing the attention he paid to this buried book. He gilded the holes, so I really like how he first,
as far as I remember, he first knifed the book, punctured the book with a knife, then buried it, and after added some shiny details.
That's an amazing form of psychotherapy, and also reminiscent of the project we talked about, where people try to preserve the history of the particular book by gilding cracks and showing the life it has lived. And here Mark is showing the death it had. Quite a thing. Love it.
That was the topic we discussed with Katie Abbott
and many others.
Tomorrow's past.
Tomorrow, tomorrow's past. So it's also a rather controversial idea. Funny how people have very, very strong opinions about books and what you should do with them. So people think that books should look pristine, and if something happens to a book, it's a crime against the book, but it's also an aesthetic crime. Why would you show a book's age? It should look like the day it was made. No, it shouldn't. we also had one more example of book sculptures that was recently in the news.
Mm-hmm.
A mystery artist, an anonymous artist who wants to remain anonymous, has produced a number of sculptures just of a similar type, although in this case the books are deconstructed to a much greater degree, and they were sold for a collective sum of some £50,000, and they were donated to a reading charity, and by they are very different in their approach to what we were discussing before that. If you scroll it a bit further down, there's another example there.
Yeah. This one.
Yeah. That one. So whereas in the previous example, the book was mostly preserved and created a landscape, here it is deconstructed, and also the shape of the sculpture is related to the contents of the book. So this particular one is based on Lanark by Alice de Grey. And you see the architectural details. You see one of the characters of the book holding with his disheveled hair, with his tools of trade, and again, if you go to the comment section, don't do that. You'll see some very strong opinions.
So this is paper art. The exhibition is called Words on Paper, Galila's collection, and it shows, you can see some of the examples right now. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I think so. And there are many samples of different, quite different paper art, and some of the objects are created from random paper. Some of the objects are created from printed materials and books, and some others similar things. So there is some similarity to the topics, or some relevance to the topics we discussed before, either connected with connection to book sculptures, or with connection to sculptures or art created with type and cliches. But anyway, here is another view on this issue, another approach. Stepan wrote, from a moral standpoint, it's the most appropriate, very interesting project, a bit of corpse snatching. It's about Mark Cockram's varied books. But yeah, definitely from the moral standpoint, it's the most appropriate. And of course, it would be interesting to see if somebody carved their own wooden type and then created sculptures with it, if the people would react the same. I don't know, especially if you wouldn't provide any comments on the fact that the type was created by the person who created this piece of art. So I guess it's still an open discussion, and every person needs to find their own attitudes or formulate their own attitude toward this topic. I guess I shared mine. As for the book sculptures, do it if you do not destroy anything unique. And once again, we talked with Daniel Kelm about that, about adding to some other person's bindings or art or craft. If you do not destroy it, you can try to make it more beautiful or interesting or actual or anything. That's also There was a news that in Yeltsin Center at its museum dedicated to the creation of the young Russian democracy in Ekaterinburg, security man drew eyes on a painting of one of Malevich's students. I don't remember her name, unfortunately, and it's just the news just broke today or yesterday, something like that. And
no, you missed the first iteration. It happened last year.
Oh, okay.
In December,
yeah.
And only today they finally told us who did it.
Oh, okay.
Before that, the story was that at
somebody
somebody draw two small black dots on a painting. You know, one of those peasants in Malevich like to paint. So that kind of stuff.
And the faces are without any noses, eyes, or mouth, just oval shape. And then somebody have drawn eyes with ball pen, which is interesting.
Why?
Well, he was uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable to see these faces without eyes. I can sort of understand why somebody would be uncomfortable. I cannot understand why somebody would draw anything on these paintings, though. But well, here's another illustration to our discussion, I guess.
I can't wait for them to come back to Moscow to see how well they restored it, because it's one of my favorite paintings. It used to be shown like once a decade, but now it's in the permanent collection of the new Tretyakov galleries. So in a month or two, I want to go and see if you can see any sort of traces of vandalism. Well, we'll see.
As usual, many thanks to all of our viewers, and we'd like to say thanks to our patrons on Patreon, and please consider joining the crowd, because money that we get from our patrons is the only source for our podcasts to get the videos edited. Well, not the only source, because if it was the only source, we wouldn't get we would only get half of the videos edited or something like that. We still have to add some money, but still we would like to invite more people to join the crowd, because we have a lot of plans. We would like to spend more time working on the French, Spanish, and now Russian versions of the podcast. And we'll also invite people who are ready to read and check the Spanish, French, and Russian subtitles of the podcast for further translation into English, so that English-speaking members of the English-speaking audience would be able to watch these other language podcast versions of iBookBinding's podcast. So if you are ready to volunteer, it's an unpaid job, it's a volunteer thing, but if you are ready to volunteer, please send us a message or just leave a comment and we will reach out to you. We've got several answers from people who are ready to work on the Spanish version of the podcast, and I'll be reaching out to them pretty soon, but we still have to find people for the French version. It's a bit easier with Russian for us, with the Russian language, obviously, but yeah, French version still demands some attention. So if you are speaking French, and if you love book arts and book history, and if you're ready to spend some time with reading and correcting the subtitles, please reach out. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Yeah, see you. Yeah.